Series lands in the Persian Gulf to enjoy classic Arabian hospitality. After a break of 3 years, the top players in the world return to one of their favourite venues. And this is how those top names stand in the world rankings at the moment. David Palmer, the new king of the tour, in a three-way battle at the top now, with David Evans, his highest ever at number 4, and Thierry Lanko, highest ever at number 5. The next 8 is a real battle between the rising lights and the previous top dogs. Martin Heath, Simon Park and Paul Johnson slipping down as Ong Ben Hee, Stuart Boswell and Lee Beach will head for the top. Thierry Lanko is charging again here in Qatar, through to the quarterfinals to take on the world number 1. Now the most successful French squash player ever. David Palmer is the man that beat him in the semi-finals in Hong Kong. He's the man they're all gunning for now. He's enjoying the limelight at number 1, but now he's under pressure. Had to give better to this man, Peter Nicol, at the last event in Egypt. In a dramatic 5-set thriller, Nicol proved that he's back on form and determined to have that world number 1 spot back. But there's always the unpredictable Jonathan Power at number 2 in between them. Power dropped out of Hong Kong with illness, lost to Palmer in the semis in Egypt, and there's more trouble for him now here in the quarterfinals as he's taken out by John White in less than 50 minutes. So the rest of the quarterfinal results look like this. Lankow pushing hard, but Palmer dominant in the end. Nicol took out world number 4 Evans, and Stuart Boswell finds yet another semi-final place in his ever-improving career. And he's now involved in an all-Australian affair as we go to the highlights of our first semi-final. Inconsistent for the last 6 months, it's been a difficult patch in the youngster's progress to the top, but he sounds pretty relaxed here in Qatar.
Yeah, I mean it's perfect. The hospitality's been great that they put on for us. The venue and the court's probably the best in the world that I think we play at. So yeah, they make everything very easy for us to play well here. I lost to David at the British Open this year when he went on and won it. And he's probably definitely the informed player at the moment and number 1 in the world. But yeah, I mean I think I'm playing alright, and yeah, if I play my game, hopefully I've got a good chance. I think every time you lose to someone, you sort of look at what you've done wrong and hopefully don't make the same mistakes again. But yeah, I've just got to sort of turn it around and do things right this time.
And for David Palmer, the plan has been to stay relaxed and cool, and it's certainly working as he cruises through to the semis.
Yeah, that was my plan coming into the tournament. I've done well the last few tournaments, but my goal this week was to try to win the first round matches as easy as possible and try to save as much gas in the tank for the semi-final and the final, where that's where it really counts. I probably paid the price last tournament in Egypt, where I had 2 or 3 hard matches in the second round of the quarterfinals and didn't have enough left for the tough semi-finals. So, but this week it's gone better. I played pretty well. And yeah, I'm in good shape and looking forward to tonight's match.
So the local squash fans out in strength to enjoy the return of the PSA Tour to Qatar. And what better way than to warm up with the world number 1 on court. But a surprise in store for them and for Palmer. Boswell puts in all his best efforts to try and unsettle his fellow countrymen and ends up with a strong lead here in the first game. And a fine shot to finish it off, 15-9 to Stuart Boswell. Calm and collected certainly, and that's going to give Palmer something to think about. And we'll pick up the highlights now from Game 2 with our courtside commentators, the voice of squash himself, Robert Edwards, ably assisted by Mark Cairns.
So a terrific start here for Stuart Boswell, the Australian on the left-hand side of the court in the all-white shirt, taking the first game, and in fact the first game that's been dropped by his opponent in these championships so far, the semi-final stage, and that's Dave Palmer with the black sleeves to his shirt. And Dave Palmer really has been showing why he's ranked, as he has been this month 1 in the world on the PSA ranking list. And a new commentary voice with me to share this terrific championships in Qatar. Welcome, Mark Cairns. And Mark, first comment from you. your thoughts on this match? Two tough Aussies putting in a big one.
Yes, thank you, Robert. It's nice to be here. Yeah, I think so. I think that David Palmer has got himself in a good position now as world number one, and Stuart is looking to move up from the sort of chasing pack and get into the top 4 or 5 in the world.
Well, he certainly couldn't have had a better start to this semi-final. He's looked good right the way through the championships, and little on the back foot for that one, but Stuart Boswell
looking a little disheartened there, Robert. You know, he didn't pick the ball up early, and that's not a good sign for him at this stage.
Dave Palmer going through his preparation, and Dave Palmer has gone on record here this week as saying that he loves this court. And it's funny how you professional players tend to have preferences, but I'd have thought all courts would be pretty well the same. But in this case, Dave Palmer has said, nope, this court is special for me and I feel very comfortable on it. Certainly his results have shown it.
Yes, it's a permanent glass court, which is fairly unusual. Qatar are, I would say, probably the only place that have a permanent 4-wall glass court. What it does do is the ball bounces slightly lower, making the game faster, and you can be more aggressive, and that suits David Palmer. He hits the ball very hard, so he can keep the pace of the ball high and still be aggressive.
Well, David there very fairly stopping. And Boswell now into hand at 6-7, and of course leading by 1 game to love, so it's about as tight as you can get. And Boswell, for me, has been one of the stars of the last year on the PSA Tour. I think about his results at the Scottish Open, where he made the final and semi-final of Hong Kong, I think, wasn't it, Mark?
Yes, he made Hong Kong semis last year, and then this year, coming back into the same event, he managed to defend those points and also made semi-final.
Dave Palmer, as always, very focused, very professional, and I think it gives these Aussies an extra flip if it's one of their own countrymen coming on the court. Oh, but what a curl there. Boswell decided to end that point, and he did it with a certain amount of venom.
Yeah, good position. He's opened his shoulders up, taken the ball on fully and finished it. Very nice.
And well, what one Australian can do, another one can do, but the other side of the court.
Yeah, this is a bit of a harder shot, this one, taking the straight nick on, but again produced a very good shot and finished the rally.
Well, that gives Dave Palmer here serving 10-7 in the second, and he would dearly love to take this game if he can to level the scores. But
yeah, these next 2 rallies, Robert, are very important. This is where the game will be won and lost.
Well, both players playing so tight there. Well, there was a little bit of body contact.
Stuart's very disappointed with that. Ball finished very near the front wall. I'm not sure David Palmer was in a great position to hit a winner there.
Well, whatever. The referee, Roy Gingell from Wales, an international referee, makes the decision, and the score, 11-7, Dave Palmer. And Dave, I don't know, I think with the mantle of the world number one, has really risen to the top-notch spot and is acting very much like the absolute professional, doing a great job as number one. But he's got a lot of young bloods out there attacking him, and there's an attack immediately. Stuart coming back in.
Very nice
8-12.
finish, Robert. You know, he gets into a good position, lets the ball come up head height, takes a straight nick on a backhand volley and finishes it.
And this court playing so true, so well.
This is an example of how the court is quick and low bouncing.
Now, a look from both players, and it's Palmer who holds serve And that's 13-9. Yes. Well, what do you say to that?
Well, they're keeping the rally short. Some very attacking stuff going on here, Robert.
And that's 10-13 to Stuart Boswell, as the score sheet says. And a good time for him to produce a little bit of magic, but Dave Palmer is going to be really trying to put a big weight on this game, tie it down, finish it off, and level the score.
Yeah, Stuart really wants to get ahead here. He needs to win the next 1-2 rallies to get himself back into this.
And that's 14-10 now to Palmer. Game ball. And if he takes it, of course, it's 1-1 in this first semi-final. And there's the stroke. He's got it. It's 1-1. Now, young Stuart has got something to think about.
He certainly has, and we can see how it's decided after the break.
Well, we welcome the viewers back to this semi-final. Dave Palmer's taken the third game and now leading 2-1. Good audience anticipating this fourth game, and really it's a question of, can Stuart Boswell reassert himself, find the form of the first game and do some serious damage against Dave Palmer. But Dave Palmer looks to me to be very much in role at the moment. He's settled and he's playing, for me, a solid game, Mark.
He is. He started off the last game very fast. Stuart was looking a little tired and took a breather. But now he's got to get in there. You know, if he lets Dave get away 4 or 5 points, this game will slip away from him very quickly.
And there he is, fidgeting with those shoes again. It's a real trait of this player, Mark.
He does it all the time. You know, I'm not quite sure what's up with his shoes, but he does play with them all the time.
I've asked him about it, and he tells me it's all about making sure his foot is well into the shoe. And it's become a little bit of a trademark for him now. But that's also another trademark, a good attack. Push Boswell all over the court. And finally that attempted pickup doesn't make it, and there he's after those shoes again.
Yeah, that's a tough rally for Stuart. He's looking a little weary now.
And certainly looking to me as though Palmer is starting to assert himself in this match. Seems to have an answer for most things, and he's controlling this rally as well. There's a newfound confidence about this man.
Yeah, he's attacking all 4 corners now. Stuart really has to do some work now to get out of this problem.
Well, he's got the armory, he's got the ability, but he's also got one heck of an opponent facing him. A very confident Dave Palmer, but that one's out, and for the first point of this game, Stuart is back in hand. 1-4. And good crowds have been here to watch. We've had quite a week this week. We've had everything from rocket shows to singers and dancers, and it's been a tremendous place for the game of squash. PSA have had a ball.
That's a great length from Stuart. He's lobbed the ball up, got the ball over David, and it's dropped dying into the back corner.
We know he's got tons of ability, and of course works with Rodney Martin in Australia. He's couldn't ask for a better mentor, a tough taskmaster, and a man who has probably one of the great racket skills of all time.
Oh yes, I think that having a coach that's as good as that might be a bit of a problem for some of the lesser players, but Stuart seems to be able to cope with it, and he's doing very well with him.
Yes, and these two men are likely also in the next few weeks to be part of the Australian team that will be playing in the Worlds in Melbourne. But at the moment, they're on different sides of the fence. Oh, that was nonchalant.
Yeah, very good. You hit a very good forehand volley. Stuart only just got that back.
And that's brought Palmer in at 6-4. He's got a venomous racket when it's working, Boswell. And if I had to pick a tip for the future, he's got to be one of the rising stars who I think you're going to see punching it out in the top 3 or 4 mark. I don't know if you agree.
I do. I think I've seen Stuart playing for 4 or 5 years now on the tour, and each year he's just gradually got better. But I think that now, the next 12 months, I can see him really becoming one of the dominant players.
Yeah, it's nice to see. He's a more pleasant young man you couldn't wish to meet. But a little bit of a tiger on the court. Stuart Boswell looks so young, but I think he's 23 years of age now, and he served a really solid apprenticeship. Dave Palmer not ready, just raises his hand. And the battle recommences. I think one of the main factors about David over the last year or so has been his patience. He's taken on almost a Peter Nicol type attitude to the game. He's really thinks the game's out and is prepared to put in and do a lot of work, Mark.
Yeah, he plays quite a lot of an attacking game, but he seems to realise the crucial points and extends the rally and usually wins them.
Too good.
A look of incredulity from young Boswell, and the score stays 6-4.
Sorry's in my way. Interference.
Suggesting a little interference. And a very respectful audience here. They enjoy their squash. We've had some good audiences during this tournament. Had a lot of fun. And of course Qatar has a great background for squash. But this, the first Qatar Classic, and
That's an unusual mistake there, Robert. That's a favourite shot of David's.
and Boswell now 5-6. And he really needs to produce something if he's going to take this into the 5th. Certainly he's got the physical attributes to push on for a long match, but can he handle the power when David starts to attack like he's doing now? Puts a lot of pressure on a player. Terrific lob.
It's a disappointing end to that rally for David Palmer, but it was a good rally for him. He took the volley and he was moving Stuart around every 4 corners of the court.
And not a word from Stuart, just gets on with it. But again, it's Dave Palmer who's controlling from the tee.
Yeah, he's hitting a better length than Stuart at the moment. And this is giving him an opportunity to volley and stay in front of Stuart.
Dave Palmer, of course, works with his coach Sean Moxon in Belgium. Good combination. They've worked well together. Obviously have a lot of trust in one another. And David there puts that one in the tin. The mighty Jahangir Khan watching. 10 times British Open champion, 6 times world champion. Knows something about the game. And here in Qatar is, of course, the vice president of World Squash Federation. And
That's a big effort from the world #1 there to have a little dive on the floor trying to get the ball back.
well, it shows the intent, the intensity of this man. He really does want it. And this is a tight game. Boswell desperately needs to edge it out. Oh, how tight is this? This is grand stuff.
Yeah,
Both players thinking.
Both looking for the weak shot, looking to try and get in onto the volley.
And finally that attempted boast. And the audience spellbound by some great squash at this stage. And so they should be. Dave Palmer, 10-11 in this 4th game. And still forcing the pace, looking for those short balls. And giving Stuart Boswell a lot of work to do. And there, Boswell punches the ball into the tin.
That's an unusual mistake, Robert. He gets into a good position here. He forces a weak shot out of David, good position, and then he's 2 inches too low.
I tend to think of Stuart Boswell's backhand as being one of his great strengths, of course.
He does volley very well as well. He gets into a great position.
Well, now is that a let? Certainly a very forceful push by the champion. Oof.
Yeah, I think he was a bit unfortunate there not to get a stroke, but a let's enough.
Well, it stays 11-all. Now they're locked in this fourth game. And I think the crowd would like to see this go the distance. Nothing against Dave Palmer, they're just enjoying the squash, and if he continues like that, it will go the distance. Boswell back in hand now, 12-11. Needs 3 points.
Yeah, the players are going to start getting a little edgy now. It's getting down to the business end of the game.
Now, did he have time to take his racket back? Well, Roy Gingell says yes, he did, and it's a stroke.
Yeah, I think he was in a position to hit that, Robert.
And that's 12-all. Get a pin drop now. Not an overly effusive audience, but certainly one who enjoys their squash and very polite, very pleasant to spend time with.
That's a very good finish there, Robert. David Palmer's got into it early, played a short backhand drop shot. It hits the nick, doesn't bounce, and Stuart calls it down.
Well, again, it's the work that Dave Palmer puts in. He puts his opponents under so much pressure, and I think, like when you guys have to play the Peter Nichols of this world, you know now that when you play Dave Palmer, it's not going to be easy. He always puts in a hard one. And Boswell, the body language says it all. Not happy with that. That ball into the tin.
If you notice, David Palmer's getting quite excited now. There's a little fist every time he hits a good shot.
Well, yes, he's on match ball, of course, 14-12. And if he can go through here now, this is another final for him. And again, against a fellow Australian, they always like to beat their homegrown talents. Gives it an extra zest. Oh, David went for that. And still in control of the rally.
A good change of pace, Robert.
Well, Boswell's been asked to do a lot of work. Oh. Keep your eye on this ball if you can. And finally, a scream from David as that ball comes across his body, and it's a stroke, surely. Yes.
Desperate stuff, Robert.
This is good on the edge of your seat stuff, and that's 13-14 and still match ball.
I see the boys are taking a little bit of a breather there.
No, surely not. Well, from where we are, we can see the sweat on these two players, absolutely drenched. This has been a tough match, and it's not over yet. Oh,
good recovery from Stuart.
Both of these players now obviously looking for an error from their opponent. Stuart's down, and Dave Palmer, has he put it away? He does. He offers his hand, and it's all over. Dave Palmer has made it to the first Qatar Classic final. What an effort. And this world number one, he could be there rewriting the record book in the years to come. Great effort, Dave Palmer.
Yeah, he's going to be very pleased with that, Robert. He's number one in the world now, and he's got to get to the finals.
I thought I started quite well again. I was a little bit disappointed not to pull away. I think I was 8-6 or 9-7 up, and he got 3 or 4 on me, and 12 down, I think I was. But I was happy to get 14-12, but showed at the end he was so desperate, and he covered the court. Like the last 3 points, I thought I had him won easily, and somehow he got the balls back, and shows the type of personality he's got and determination. So I really, to win that last point, it was very hard, but I was happy to get off in 4 games. I thought my game built as it went on, so I got stronger and stronger. So I'm pretty happy. Just try to recover now and relax a little bit, and try to build myself up for tomorrow night.
So a struggle for the world number 1. Who's he going to take on? As world number 7, John White takes on Peter Nicol, that other place in the final. All the action after the break. Welcome back to the Qatar Classic here in Doha, Qatar, as we go to our second semi-final. John White playing for Scotland takes on Peter Nicol, now playing for England. John White's form has faltered the last 6 months, but he'll be pleased to be back once again in the semi-final stages. But it hasn't been easy, believing he could be.
Well, before the semi-finals, it's the second round I had against Paul Johnson. I was 2-1 down. I could have easily lost in 5, and only just won 15-10 in the 5th. The first round was 3-love against Johnny Williams, which is it's quite nice to have a 3-love victory. For the first round, and plus for the second round, later stages it goes, it gets more difficult. And I was very lucky against PJ and to get to the semi-finals tonight after beating Jonathan Power. My goal was to get to the quarters, and then once you reach the quarters, you have to play one of the top 4. So then you look to that match, and then if you get to the semis, get to the final, it's a big bonus. But playing Jonathan Power last night, it was just really had nothing to lose. I had set my goal to be the quarters. I was in the quarters against Jonathan, and everything went my way last night, and I'm here today to play the semi.
Not the man you want to meet at the semi-final stage though. Peter Nicol always gets stronger as the tournament goes on.
Well, the contest I felt okay and got better. I've gotten better as the week's gone on. I'm playing much better than I was at the start of the week, as happens quite regularly. And now going into this game, I can't wait to play it. It should be a fantastic game. Things when I play John, it's always great fun to play the match. Hopefully I'll win it. I'm obviously going to try to, and I believe I will. But first and foremost, it's going to be a great game of squash to play. He hits the ball extremely hard, and I think he's actually said he's hitting the ball harder now than he was, which is remarkable. But no, that doesn't make any difference. He's a tall guy. He's quite strong physically. Hits the ball hard, but that's not a problem at all.
So on to court with Robert Edwards and Mark Cairns.
Well, Mark, if I didn't already have a feature, I'd be quite happy to pay for this, because I think any match that's featuring John White, who at the moment is as hot as they come, and John there in the white shirt, a dynamic player, possibly one of the most exciting players in the world, and his opponent in the all-back, Peter Nicol, who is very much in focus for this tournament. I think it's going to be, or could be, the clash of the entire tournament so far. I don't know your feelings.
It's a definite clash of styles, Robert. We've got tall ex-Australian who's now playing for Scotland, hits it very hard, takes on a lot of winners, and then we've got the slightly shorter ex-Scot who's now playing for England, who plays a more consistent rallying game. So it's going to be a good competition, I think.
Well, it is international after all, so yes, there's John White, born in Australia, lives in England, American wife, plays for Scotland. A man with an identity crisis, but not a crisis as far as squash is concerned. And in the quarterfinal, we saw the very best of him. John White there, beating John Power, the mercurial Canadian #1 and the #2 seed here to go into this semi-final. So he's on form, and he's on certainly firing the big guns, but not that time.
Yeah, there's never any fear with John. He takes the ball on. When there's a chance to have a winner, he will really have a good go at it.
And Peter Nicol, very much the pro of the tour. Does everything so well. His preparation, his match, his mental preparation, physical preparation. A pleasure to be around. Great advert for the game, and I think now John White moving into this sphere, this area.
The opening few rallies usually see Peter on the end of a few hard court sprints, and this is no exception.
Well, 2-all.
Nice boast, just run the ball around the sidewall. Totally wrong for John.
Well, he was reading it in yesterday's paper, wasn't he? But this will get sharper, it will get faster. And one thing for our viewers to watch out for with John White is that he hits the ball harder probably than any other man in the world, with maybe the exception of Del Harris of England. But it's not just about power. There's increasing subtlety in his game.
Oh yeah, he's got great touch, especially front forehand.
from a pro's point of view, could be quite a match.
Oh, definitely. You'd have to say that Peter's favourite, but then that never worries John too much. The way he plays is so aggressive that he can actually beat anyone.
Well, he certainly took out Jonathan Power in 3 yesterday, and he did it with incredible ease. It was an awesome performance. I don't think he had a single error in it. If he produces that style today, I think it will not go well for Peter Nicol. But Peter Nicol is he's always there at the finish.
He's fairly experienced, Robert.
Yes, he is. But there, John White showing some of the shots that make him so exciting on the tour. Little movement in the crowd. Good gallery. And you players have had a terrific time here in Qatar. It's while I'm running around working, I keep seeing you lot oiling yourself down by the beach, so it's not been a bad trip for you.
Oh, Robert, we wouldn't do that.
And I won't even mention the golf. And this is typical first game semi-final stuff. Both players looking to settle themselves and not make mistakes, keep the ball deep.
Yeah, at this point you can see that Peter's trying to dominate the tee, keep the rallies long and hard, and see if he can tire John out for later on in the match.
John White now working with a new training regime, and it seems to have worked with him over the last, I don't know, 12 months. He's been putting in a massive effort physically to go with his racket skills, which were never in question. It's really a question of getting the skills together with the body, and then of course the head has got to be there as well. And
he just needs to become a little bit more consistent. He can regularly finish in the top 4, sometimes makes the final, and he's even won. He won in Antwerp, beating Peter in the semi-final. So he can do it, it's just that he has to be able to do it more often, more regularly.
well, he hit that with so much power I lost vision of it. This is building nicely, and what I like is both players are looking for the ball, not each other. There's no pushing or shoving on the tee. They're both moving around each other. Even with a little bit of bump there, they still play the ball. I like to see that.
Peter's doing a lot of work in this rally.
And it was a great finish from the big white, or the great white as the boys call him. Probably two of the most popular players on the circuit, liked by all and sundry, except of course their opponents on the day. And a lovely breakup of ball movement here, lots of boasts.
Good
Lots
use
of
of all 4 corners there from Peter. Got John on the end of a hard rally and then finished him with a good forehand straight volley.
Well, that a killing boast from John White to go 6-all. And we rejoin the action at 11:10. And it's been very tight, Mark, right the way through this game. It's been no gaps between the players.
No, they've both got off to a good start, and they're both in the game at this point. Next 2 or 3 rallies, and we'll see the winner.
I feel as though John has been making Peter do a lot of work, but he's not reaping a huge reward because the tiger in Peter Nicol is chasing down so much.
Peter's very fit. He's used to playing these sorts of games. This will fall right into his hands. Even if he loses this game, John will have had to been on court much longer than he would have liked.
Yes, it's and of course Dave Palmer sitting there now relaxed, having had a shower, will be able to say to himself, go on guys, fight for the next 2 hours, it'll do me good for the final. And 12 all. Peter Nicol requests the score again, but it stays the same, 12 all. First game, so important to get the first one under your belt.
Oh, especially for John. He really would like to have the 1 game buffer.
It seems such a long time ago. I remember Peter Nicol on this court about 6-7 years ago playing Sami Alapura. I think he was ranked about 90 in the world then, and we were all talking about the possibilities, and here he is, a man who's won it all, including an MBE from his government for services to sport, gold medal at the Commonwealth Games, dominated as a world #1 for such a long time, British Open champion, and it's 13 all. And the concentration that took him there is still with him, and a mistake from John White.
He'll be disappointed with that, Robert. He had a good opportunity to finish the rally there.
Mercurial sort of player, John White. He can run points so quickly, but when you're working with such a fine line, you can also lose them quickly, Mark.
Oh yes, he does shoot really hard at the tin.
And the crowd very quiet at this stage. Big points. Well, finally, the length just too good, and that's it. Peter Nicol wraps up the first game.
Good cross-court whip here from Peter from the front. Gets it past John, and it dies in the back forehand corner.
So Nicol used to keeping the pressure up to the very last point. It pays off once again. John White, all the work to do. Plenty of coaching from David Palmer. Let's see if it works after the break.
Welcoming our viewers back, and as you can see, the crowd are really enjoying this, and we're at a crucial stage in this second game. Peter Nicol 10-13 down against John White, but on the tee and controlling things. Now, John White being John White at these stages, 2 quick kills can do it, but that one he's missed. And the shout shows you the anger.
Yeah, he needs this game, Robert. He doesn't want to go 2-0 down to Peter.
11-13, still needing 2 points, and I can see Dave Palmer in the background there, Jahangir Khan watching this. Dave Palmer obviously wondering which one of these guys will meet him tomorrow in the final. Are we going to see a touch of genius from John White?
Definitely up the pace, Robert. He's hitting that ball as hard as he can at the moment.
Yes, it's certainly gone up a few notches. And Peter Nicol, what a get there. Terrific recovery. And whoa, unbelievable dive off John White, and he's got the ball back.
He's done well to stay in this rally.
Having to do a bit of work. Now, can he recover again? Backwall boast, but he's missed it. I think I did say he's one of the most exciting players in the world.
Well, it's unusual to see a dive in a rally, let alone 2 in the same rally.
Well, he might be down, but I assure you he's not out. And a sporting gesture there from Peter Nicol. Crowd loving this. And of course the court now needs to be wiped. Take the sweat off the court, which is so dangerous at this level. And there on the left, Abdul Wahab, president of African Squash, and on the right, our host, Nabil Ali bin Ali, who is the president of Qatar Squash and the man responsible for putting on this wonderful event. Him and his team, I must say, Mark, have done a great job. You guys have had a wonderful venue and a terrific tournament.
Oh, they've made us so welcome here, Robert. It's always been a pleasure to come to Qatar, but this year especially. The boys have wanted for nothing. As you mentioned earlier, a little bit of golf, a little bit of sunbathing, and just a very congenial host.
Yes, thank you for the Qatar Golf for welcoming us so nicely. And I must say, Nabil Ali Ben Ali has been a post par excellence. Lovely man. So we get on with this second semi-final. And John White still, of course, in the driving seat, but needing to finish it off. Looking good here. Can he do it? Oh, he still doesn't get the length. Peter Nicol stays in it.
It's where Peter's so good. You know, he's under a great deal of pressure and he stays in the rally.
So frustrating for John White. Thinks he's taken the point, and back comes Peter Nicol. But surely this time, yes, he has. John White, a very delicate forehand drop.
He needed that, you know, at this point he needs to win this game, and he had Peter under a lot of pressure in that rally. Needed to win it.
And that's given him game ball to level this match. Crowd, I think, are really enjoying this. And he's done it. First time of asking, John White 1-all. And Peter Nicol knows he's in a fight.
Very delicate forehand shot here. As I was saying earlier, he's got great touch. Deep to the backhand of Peter, leaves him with a forehand volley. Real soft touch. Great shot.
Peter Nicol looking for inspiration. And there Dave Palmer, the man who will play the winner, quietly reflecting on what he's watching. Well, the third game was very much a one-sided affair, with Peter Nicol taking it 15-7. So we're now in the fourth, and 8-11. John White serving.
A bit of a cheap error there from Peter. He's getting close to the finish line now, and he's trying to get over a little too early.
Yeah, it's always so difficult for players of your standard, Mark, knowing when it's going to end, tightening it up at that last minute, whether to go for it, whether to play a longer game to endure. Somebody like John White, I feel, just sees the finish and goes for it.
Oh yeah, that's his game plan right from the word go. You know, you give him half a chance and he's going to take a shot at it and finish you off.
And now body contact.
That's a disappointing end for that rally for John. He just got himself back into that game, and now he's given Peter a little bit of leeway again.
And the frustration showed on John White. So angry at himself. He knows how close he is now to the very top stages of PSA professional squash. He just needs that little bit of nudge, always a little bit of luck, but this time he's missed it.
Yeah, he was wrong-footed there by Peter. The pace generated on that backhand volley was a little bit more than John expected.
And this is a good spell for Peter Nicol. John White really has... Oh, and what a time for it to happen.
Yeah,
a sidewall roller.
A little bit of fortune there for Peter.
And that's match ball, Peter Nicol. And how pleased would he be to get John White out of the way at this stage? A 3-1 semi-final, he'd be delighted. It's been hard. And he's in control now. Surely he's going to finish this off.
Some desperate recovery here from John.
Well, it's a good thing he's got 9-foot arms, because he wouldn't have been in it yet. And he's actually now starting to push Peter around. Oh, now surely it's over. It is over. John White throws the racket, but it's 3-1 Peter Nicol.
They leave the best rally to last, Robert.
61 minutes of hard squash, two gentlemen of the game, and a delighted audience. Great semi-final, and it's Nicol Palmer in the Classic final.
Well, harder than he hoped maybe, but Peter Nicol is still looking fresh after this one.
Yeah, very much so. And it was only about an hour as well. So I think the third game was reasonably quick. The first two were quite long. The third game was reasonably quick. The fourth was reasonable as well. So it was tough. It was a high pace. I mean, John plays at an incredible place, and it's either very, very good or he can make a lot of mistakes. Today, luckily for me in a way, he made a lot more mistakes than he did yesterday. I'd like to think it was down to a lot of the way I played. I kept the pace on, I kept it deep, and put him under pressure to try and go for the shots when he really didn't want to. Yeah, David struggled in the first game. and then in the second and third looked excellent. Took the game to Stuart and completely outplayed him, I thought. His short play was excellent. He stepped onto it physically. He's obviously very, very strong, and mentally he believes he's going to win this event. Mentally he believes he's the best player. So it was very impressive in the second and third. So I feel exactly the same way. So it should be a great battle tomorrow.
So the final everyone was hoping for, I think. A great clash in prospect. Join us to see who will be the new world number one in our next programme. See you then. The I Group sponsored PSA Super Series jets into the Persian Gulf to enjoy classic Arabian hospitality. After a break of 3 years, the top players in the world return to one of their favourite venues. And the squash fans here for the Qatar Classic have seen some great action. And in our last programme, we saw the first semi-final, an all-Australian affair, as well as the world number 3 taking on the world number 8 in the other. Well, for David Palmer, world number 1, it was a surprisingly slow start against his fellow countryman Stuart Boswell. Ever-improving youngster gave his training partner and old sparring partner a bit of a shock in game 1, taking it 15-9. But Palmer steadied, came back with 15-10, 15-3 and a very tight 15-13 to overcome the tired youngster. What effect would that have on Palmer for the final? Well, there was only one player who was going to find out. It was going to be one of these two. World number 3, Peter Nicol, taking on world number 8, John White. And John White again giving Nicol a bit of a shock early on, taking him to 13-15 in game 1. Nicol just getting the edge. White took game 2, but Nicol came back 15-7, 15-10 to set things up for a classic final. Peter Nicol may be at world number 3, but he knows his current form should see him back at world number 1 very shortly. David Palmer wants to make sure, as he's only just got that title, that he hangs on to it for as long as possible. He came here looking relaxed and determined to stay that way. And in the early rounds, his form was showing that he was right on track for another win here. But he knows he's got a hard match against Peter Nicol.
I think we played about 4 times this year. I beat him early in the year in Hurghada, but he's beat me the last few times. Recently in Egypt, a couple of weeks ago in the semi-finals, he beat me there 3-1. So he's probably got the edge on me over the last couple of matches, but even though I've lost the matches, I felt I've been quite close to, it's been quite close matches, and I've had my chances in the matches. So tonight, yeah, I'm just going to go in there pretty confident and just try to play my game and just see what happens.
Peter Nicol has been getting stronger throughout the year. He's only just recovering from the damage and illness at the end of last season did to his top ranking. He wants to be back at world number 1, but he doesn't underestimate the talent of the man who's taken over his crown.
I think the biggest two things are physically he's incredibly strong and mentally as well. So he doesn't give any points away. You have to beat him. He will never lose, and that's a great start. If you can, then he's built on that. His backhand drop especially is very good. His length has gotten better. His movement's improved. His reading of the game, and he's getting more experience. But his basic game, his basic mental state, and his fitness is superb. And from there, he's built a great game around it. I'm going to make sure that he doesn't get into his rhythm. He likes a rhythm. I'm going to make sure I get him behind me and make sure he has to shoot shots from awkward positions like John did last night. He still wants to play shots, so under pressure he's going to make mistakes and give me openings to then counter. And that's basically it, impose my game on him and mentally impose myself on him as well.
So the fans recognising they're about to see a clash between probably the best two players in the world on current form. We look forward to it too now with our match commentators, the voice of squash himself, Robert Edwards, and England international Mark Cairns.
So with David Palmer just wiping any excess moisture off his hand, the scene is set for this first final of the Qatar Classic here in Doha. And it's been a wonderful tournament so far. Just preceding the final, we even had a ballet performed on this court, which was really quite spectacular. But now the real reason that the court was built, to put on the best squash in the world. And here it is, the two guys who really are the informed players on the PSA Tour at the moment. David Palmer in the white, who has just taken over this month the world #1 spot, and his opponent in the all black here, Peter Nicol, who has been Mr. #1 for some time, and it offers to be quite a clash. Mark, your thoughts?
This is a big match, Robert. Peter has been dominant for 2 or 3 years on the tour, and recently has dropped to 3 in the ranking, with David Palmer coming out of the pack over the last 18 months and securing his #1 spot. Now, David is going to be playing, these are his first few finals as seeded 1, and you know he needs to win these to assert his authority. Now, Peter is desperately trying to get back to #1 in the world, so it should be a good final.
Well, I reiterate that those sentiments. And what's going to be interesting for me is that I think in David Palmer we've seen a man who's put I think you players would describe it as more dog in his game. He's really dug in, he's learned to be patient, and he's taken a leaf out of Peter Nicol's book, really. And it could be a clash that will complement itself in as much as it could give us a big match, a big game. I hope it does. This tournament deserves a huge finale. It's been terrific up to now.
I would imagine, Robert, this is going to be quite a hard encounter. Peter bases a lot of his game on his stamina and his fitness, and David Palmer does exactly the same. They both work very hard and they both make their opponents do a lot of court coverage, so I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't a very tough encounter.
I had the chance to speak to both players before this final, and they are, to say the least, very up for it. Peter Nicol, quiet, talking, having his little moments in the corner, but still you can see the tension in him. He wants this very, very much. And Dave Palmer, an intense man who has burst on the scene over the last 12 months and has lodged this #1 position for himself, and he's done it with a very solid game and a wonderfully athletic outlook as well. Very athletic boy.
He does dominate the tee. That's his biggest weapon that he uses in his match. If you watch, most of the time he spends round the middle of the court, making his opponent do more work into the corners.
A little movement in the crowd. Players just starting to get a little bit of sweat on their shirts.
This is always a bit of an edgy time, Robert. Nobody's really settled into the rhythm of the game yet.
And I think this is a game where we will see both players prepared to play the ball, make every effort to get to it. It won't be broken up. I think they both want to play. And that's 3-love.
Yes, it's an unforced error here from Peter. He's had David Palmer in the back corner and unfortunately hit it in the tin. That's a little different. That's a lovely finish.
1-3. Peter Nicol scores his first point in this final. But it's been a good start up to now for Dave Palmer. Winning himself a lot of fans, David Palmer.
Plays in a very positive manner, Robert. He, right from the word go, he wants to be in front, he wants to dominate, he plays his shots, very attacking.
And therefore, all of you amateur players out there, just watch one of these players as they strike the ball and make the tee their zone.
Yeah, Robert, at this level you really have to control the middle of the court.
Well, the opening moves in this physical game of chess. The end game coming up after the break.
Welcome back to this final of the Qatar Classic here in Doha, in this wonderful setting of the Khalifa Stadium, purpose-built stadium, probably for me one of the best in the world. And the score as we came back, 12-7 to Peter Nicol, and now with that point, 8-12, Dave Palmer in hand, but 4 points adrift.
Big opening game this, Robert. Both of these guys pride themselves on their fitness and their stamina, but neither one wants to go 1-0 down.
Oh, the feint from David, and it eventually wins him the point.
Yeah, that's a tough shot to play. I don't suggest any beginners have a go at that one.
Well, that's usually the exhibition stuff, but not normally a Dave Palmer special. But he's on a bit of a roll here.
This is a trait of David. He gets down, he's behind in the score, and seems to pull out a few rallies from nowhere.
Crowd really enjoying this. There's been a lot of talk here in Doha about these two players, and a stroke to Peter Nicol. No?
You were a little early there, Robert. I think that's a let on that one.
Well, Bill West is the man in the chair. International referee. This is pretty fierce stuff.
Yeah, they're battling for that centre of the court again, Robert.
Well, volley follows volley. It's like a practice routine. Ah, it's a double.
Yeah, it's a great shot from Peter. He's got that to cling on the wall, and David was unable to just scoop it off.
And that's 13-10. And the end of this first game looms. Peter Nicol in the driving seat.
That's a great shot. There's no bounce there at all.
And he comes back. That's the quality of Dave Palmer. He's more patient. He's prepared to work.
He never knows when he's beaten, Robert. I've watched him 4 or 5 times this season, and he's fought well from being behind.
Well, it's a let ball, and the court needs wiping. The sweat from both players can cause a danger. The speed that these guys are moving into the corners, if they slip, they really can injure themselves. So, safety precaution. And how tight are these? Oh, this is grand stuff. And Palmer's up for this. He's really pumped. Fine finesse from Peter Nicol, the mark.
That's a great finish. He's just held that ball and just pushed it cross court, and it dropped straight into the net. Nothing that David can do about that.
Keep that in your memory banks, all you squash players. That's how you do it. Now, can Peter Nicol close out this first game of this final? Certainly if he can repeat those sort of shots, it's in the bag. And again we see Peter Nicol making every effort to play the ball. And when they collide...
Yeah, they're having these collisions because both of them are fighting to get to the tee as soon as they can to control the middle of the court.
Two fair players out here. And Nicol's asking. Well, is that a no-let from Bill West?
Well, the referee's just explaining it. I'm not sure I agree, but there we go. Like I think the ball bounced enough for Peter to have got that one.
Well, it stays 12-14, and it's game ball to Peter Nicol. A wry smile from him. Take it from me. This guy is really, really tight underneath. He's desperate to take it, and he's done it. That forehand short gives him the first game.
Another fine forehand finish, Robert.
25 minutes of class squash, and Peter Nicol 1 love up.
This is where he's hit a good length, dying at the back of the court, leaves a high forehand volley.
And of course he's slotted it away. Peter Nicol now taking on some water. Now come on Peter, concentrate on your squash. He obviously has, because we rejoin the match at the third game with Peter having won the second, 15-5, and he's leading this final now 2-0. And Dave Palmer really has got a mountain facing him, Mark.
Oh yeah, Peter's got to be in a great position now. You know, like, he must be very confident. He's fit. He's used to being in this position where he's looking at winning a tournament. Now David, as world number one, has got to do something to get back in this match.
Well, the one thing we've been saying about him all the time is that he is patient and he is fit and he is prepared to work. Now, can he dig something out of this final, or are we going to see Peter Nicol run through 3-love?
I've never seen David Palmer give it up yet. He fights to the death.
We talked about the dog in him. Let's see if it comes out and bites Peter Nicol's ankle. The crowd certainly would be disappointed to see this stop at 3 games. They're having a ball with this tournament. It's been a real festival of squash here, hasn't it, Mark?
Oh, definitely. It's good to see these two players in the final. World number one versus ex-world number one. It's just the perfect finish to a perfect event.
And very much the informed men. Good gallery. We've had quite a week of squash splendor here. We've had shows, singers, dancers, you name it. We've had it. A wonderful opening night with fireworks display, the like of which I've never seen before. And all of this, of course, under the presidency of Nabil Ali bin Ali, who's done a great job here with his tournament director, Hisham Al Ghasaibi. What a team they have. And David starting to get into where he likes to be at the front of the court, dominating.
Yeah, he hasn't got very much time now, Robert. He's got to get back in this match. He's got to get back in it now.
Now Peter Nicol has been in this spot hundreds of times before, and will that experience stand up for him, or is this new tiger that's come out, David Palmer, going to start nibbling away at his lead? Ooh, that's an attack.
Yeah, that's a confident shot from Peter. He can smell the finish line and he's on his way.
I often wonder how somebody so young looking can be so fierce in his destruction of his opponents. You've been on the court with him, Mark. He doesn't take prisoners, does he?
Oh no, it's usually a very painful experience.
Oh, that's a terrific round the corner shot there from Dave Palmer.
Yeah, that's a tough shot to play. That he's held the ball late, had a little burst, it goes off the sidewall and onto the front wall. Wrong foot in Peter for a winner.
And that's given him 3-all to draw level. And Dave Palmer now has to take it one game at a time. He really has to get in there and dominate, as is his style at the front. Hurt Peter, make him do some extra work, and there an uncharacteristic error on the backhand from Peter Nicol. And that gives us 4-3 Palmer. He's a big man, Dave Palmer, and he wears the title of world number one very well. But in this case, he's up against it. Let's see what qualities he can produce, and that's not one of them he'll be looking for. High backhand.
Yeah, I think that was not quite the right shot there.
Well, an immediate comeback.
That's a powerful hit. You know, he's taking that from above his shoulder height on the backhand side. Not many players can hit the ball quite as hard as that from that position.
And that's 5-4 Dave Palmer. Winds up for this serve. I sense we're in an important part of this match. Peter Nicol, 2-love up, looking very good, and Dave Palmer trying to bite, trying to get back in, trying to keep form, looking for some chink in the armour. Peter Nicol desperate not to give him one. Oh, David will be angry with that, and he shows it.
Yeah, he knew how important this phase of the game is. He needs to get ahead and break Peter.
Now he'd opened it up, and having done all the hard work, he missed the finish shot. But that's 5-all. Peter Nicol. It can be a cruel game on times, this. And when you're working as hard as these guys are, it must be even more so. So much respect at this level for the effort these fellas put in. So many players over the past have had to leave this because of the torment their bodies have been put through, the damage they've done to themselves, the Ditmars, the Chris Robertsons of this world, Jahangir Khan.
Yeah, this is a good backhand drop shot there, and Peter just sneaks it back and just gets in the way a little. So I think that's a fair result of that rally.
So 5-all, Peter Nicol in his very recognisable black kit. And Peter, oh, that's unfortunate. David's caught Peter as he's gone through. And that's in the calf. That could be nasty. Let's have a look at it again.
Oh yeah, he just catches him with his knee.
Oh. In fact, I was wrong. It's not the calf. He's caught him in the upper leg, hasn't he?
Yeah, so Peter's not happy with that at all. I wouldn't fancy, I don't know, 13 or 14 stone running into the back of me. Peter, oh dear.
I think it could be the calf, you know. He's really gone down like he's been poleaxed, and Dave Palmer's a big boy to hit you.
Yeah, as an accidental collision, he gets as long as he needs. I think he's getting treatment from Dr. Mosom, the tournament doctor.
So could all his hard work come undone here? Find out after the break.
Well, we welcome our viewers back as this third game is really hotting up with Peter Nicol leading 9-7 and desperate to squeeze out this third game and take the title, but that ball too tight for him. Palmer's back in now, 8-9.
Yes, Peter seems to have recovered all right from his calf injury, which he had to take 3 minutes for, Robert. But he's leading now, or by 1 point.
Yes, a dead leg isn't what you want against somebody like a Dave Palmer, and that ball misses the straight drop off serve. 9-all now the score. Oh. Now that's interesting. Bill West calls no let.
Yeah, I think Peter could have got that, to be honest. I think that's probably a let. David Palmer's a big guy.
Well, it's not often you see Peter doing this, but he's not happy with the decision.
No,
it's very close.
This is a tense part of the game, Robert. He needs to win this.
Yes. Great action shot there of Dave Palmer getting onto that ball up the front. It's amazing what a big area the squash court is when you've got somebody moving you around it. Looks okay on our television screen, but it's a huge, vast area when you're having to run it. Terrific pickups from both players and clever use of the ball, but that one, frustration. And a left foot kick into the lights from Dave Palmer.
Yeah, everybody knows that we're now getting to the crux of this match.
And 10-all. It's getting tight. Dave Palmer desperately needs to find something new. And there he finds a little inspiration.
Yeah, he wrong-footed Peter there. Peter lost that on the sidewall and went away for a winner.
11-10 now. Good time to take the lead into double figures. 11-10, but every point is like pulling teeth. Loves to attack David, and he's done it so well.
Yeah, he's mixing up his pace very well. He's driving the ball very, very hard, and then he gets a weak one and pushes in a nice drop shot.
Well, if he wins, if he should take this game, it'll be a question of how much these guys have got in the tanks, because it's been a fairly tough week. It's not just one match, it's a culmination of matches all the way through to the final. Oh, how much desire is on that court from these two fellas.
That's really tight squash at the moment.
Now, is this a carbon copy?
Well, I have to agree with Peter. I reckon that is exactly the same, but a different outcome.
Well, referees, given the let in this case, always a very fine decision. Another comment from Dave Palmer, just gets on with it. Always the sensible thing to do. Oh, and a fine drop off it.
Yeah, David Palmer liked that one. You could see little fist there. Yes. Got onto it early, finished it.
Little counter drop, wins him the point. Now, can he close out this third game, get himself right back into it, take this into a real oxygen area for these two players? And he's got that one. Now looking at game ball.
Yeah, Peter's struggling a little here. His body language isn't good.
He walked away from that, Mark.
Yeah, he's starting to struggle a little with the pace, I think.
Now, is there a story here? Are we seeing a change of fortunes? Oh, God. Let ball. But Palmer was off after that. He was doing his diagonal runs.
Yeah, he knows that when you get a game ball against Peter, it's best to try and take the first one.
Now, I don't know about you, but the body language to me is that Peter's hurting at this moment. Now, I don't know whether there's a little bit of injury in that leg or whether it's an oxygen injury, a little oxygen debt or what. Certainly, he's put a lot of work in. And David, as you say, forcing the pace like this.
Yeah, David's been getting onto that early ball, doing exactly that.
2-1 now, Peter Nicol leads, but Palmer's back. And this final comes alive. Well, Dave Palmer takes on some water, change his shirt, and some advice from John White, his big buddy. There's John on the left. Palmer now serving 11-10, and it's been really nip and tuck. It's been very tight in this fourth game, and Palmer just with his nose in front. And if he takes this, he's going to throw up a lot of question marks about Peter's fitness. They're a slip.
Yeah, I think the court's getting a little damp at the back of the court there.
A lot of sweat on there now, Mark.
This is some early balls taken here from David Palmer.
He's really forcing the pace. If there's a problem with Peter physically, he's going to find it out. Now, was that a scoop?
Oh, that didn't look too good, really.
Well, that's interesting. Questionable pickup by Peter. Dave Palmer raises his arm, which you're not really supposed to do, and now the two players showing the intensity, and Peter Nicol's off the court.
This is definitely handbags at dawn here, I think.
Well, description there from Dave Palmer of what a scoop is.
Bill, it's such an obvious scoop off the side wall.
Well, Bill West on the top right there, the referee, but in the middle, Tony Parker, the tournament referees, watching things very closely.
Yeah, when you see that on the slow motion, that doesn't look too good, really.
It's so easily how the disagreement can happen. The old rule, of course, that you raise your arm is gone. That's no longer played. And, of course, David did raise his arm, but he believed Peter scooped it. And
yeah, but he called out as well, Robert. I'm not sure that that's the old rule.
But whatever. This is starting to boil and bubble, and we've got a match. Now we're getting some great squash and a little drama.
Yeah, no, I think that this is all going back to the last rally because, again, I think Peter's finished this forehand perfectly, and Dave's just a bit frustrated because he felt that he won the last rally.
Now both players are really as fair and as honest as you can get. I mean, they're just pros. They want this so much, and they've left a bucket of sweat on this court.
Yeah, they've been on there a long time now, Robert. It's like they're up to an hour and a half now.
It's a lot to give away. And it's... Oh! Now, a forehand carbon copy of the earlier points. It's a let-given appeal
Yeah,
from
there's not
Dave
much
Palmer.
room there to get through, is there, Robert? You know, like, Peter's got to try and play the ball, but he needs to have a direct line at it.
Well,
he's looking tired.
Is Peter Nicol starting to look for a little window to take some air? Certainly, the body language is that this is a tired player. Let's have a look. Let's watch him closely to see if he is struggling. If he is, it's not the place to be. Oh, tremendous attack by Dave Palmer.
Yeah,
and he's fueled up now, isn't he?
He's up for this one now. I think that he can sense that he has a chance of winning this.
Well, it's 12-11, and Dave Palmer has got a fire inside him now. And I've seen Peter Nicol put out a few fires in my time. Terrific. This tournament deserved a big final. It's been a great first event, and the players are responding with a final that they'll remember until we return next year. Oh, this is great stuff.
They're going on the attack now, Robert.
Oh, now that's surely not up.
That's a lovely finish. That's a trademark finish from David Palmer, possibly his favourite shot.
But he's almost glued to the front wall, Mark.
He knows that to beat Peter, you've got to be taking the ball early, and I haven't seen him take it earlier than this.
Look at those shorts. There's a gallon of sweat there, and this is honest endeavour from both of these players. And if Dave Palmer takes it, we're into the fifth. It's a cruel old game, isn't it? Oh. Little nudge as Dave goes through. And that's not up. Now, Peter Nicol. What's he got in there?
He's thinking he must compose himself, get on the ball early, win the next couple of rallies.
Whew, it's a hard old day at the office today. And there's very little respite for these fellas. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I happen to think that this is the hardest physical racket sport in the world. And I have nothing but admiration for these guys at the top end. They deserve everything they get because their input is huge.
Yeah, you can tell, just look at the face, they're both struggling.
And that's game ball to Palmer. Not up from Peter. Now, can he do it? Are we into a fifth? Very respectful audience here in Doha. But now, some of the crowd are starting to take sides. But the one thing they're all on the side of is good squash, and that's what they're getting. And that has won the point and the game. Dave Palmer's into the fifth. And we're going to find out about Peter's physical being marked.
He was looking tired there. Very tired. Should be an interesting start to the fifth.
We welcome our viewers back, and I can assure you nobody has left this arena. This is a match par excellence. Dave Palmer, 8-7 up in the fifth. And this is really becoming a match where you're going to test the moral fibre, the strength, the character, the personality of both players, Mark.
Yeah,
what an arena.
This is a situation where it's all down to mental strength. You've done all the training, you've done all the skills work, and now it's all about desire.
Peter Nicol, if ever he had reason to look over his shoulder, this is a reason, because in the past he's probably tended to look upon Jonathan Power as his nearest opponent, and they've had some classic matches, but suddenly a man called David Palmer has burst into the scene, and I don't think anybody will ever take him lightly again.
No, it's not often that Peter Nicholls 2-0 up and finds himself playing a 5th game.
It says volumes for this man's mental approach. Dave Palmer is up there with the big boys now.
This rally's getting quite tough, Robert.
Oh yes. What is this doing to their body on top of what? An hour and 50 minutes they've been on court, something like that? Tough game played by men.
Nobody wants to give an inch here, do they?
Oh, how tough is this? Backboard boast off Dave Palmer, but those look like weary legs to me. Oh, golly. Both players so hard.
Yeah, both found that tough, that rally.
What's happening here? Dave Palmer's going to speak about a little nudge. Well, the score is 7-8. What is happening? Dave Palmer seems to have left the arena struggling with cramp, and Peter Nicholls complaining bitterly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. My interpretation of the rules, you cannot leave for cramp unless you give the game up, and you can't do that in the 5th.
No, you can come off if you've been injured, if there's been a collision, or you've fallen over, but cramp is not a reason for stopping.
Well, Peter Nicholls really has reason to be upset here. Dave Palmer seems to have left the arena suffering with cramp, which is against the rules, and there our VIPs enjoying the scenario. And this has happened before to Peter Nicholls.
Yes, I watched a match of him in Minneapolis, and Rodney Isles did exactly the same, and Peter came from a position where he should have won easily to winning by the most narrow of margins.
Well, the referees have done a great job here. It's a pity that this should have happened right in the final game of the final.
I think we'll find that Peter's now going to try and step it up and try to exploit this.
Well, if there's a problem, he'll certainly pick at it and fester it until it'll hurt even more for David.
Yeah, I can see Peter getting in front of him, extending the rallies.
Oh, and a sidewall nick cruelly rolls out. Now, obviously, David Palmer is in some sort of stress.
Yeah, you can see him kicking his feet. It's not looking too good at this point.
Oh, what an attempt at a curl.
Yeah, he realises he's got to go for the early winner. He can't rally with Peter now.
Now, if he is in trouble, it's going to roll. And I have to say this, and you know, really, it doesn't bother me who wins as long as the match is good. But if David Palmer was to win this, having left the court with cramp, and then come back and win it, it would be a very unfortunate scenario for Peter Nicholls.
Yes, I wouldn't want to have to interview him afterwards, Robert.
Well, this could explode, because if that happens, I think we'll see Peter Nicholls leaving this court and chasing up to speak to Bill West in the referee's seat. And Tony Parker, the tournament referee, is going to have a problem on his hand. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, this is a perfect rally for Peter. He's extending the rally, keeping it going, trying to hurt David a little bit more physically.
You can feel the pain from right up here in the commentary box, and David is hurting now. Every step is agony, and I admire his courage. He won't give in. Somebody moving at the back. Must be relatives of Dave Palmer giving him an extra breather. Come on, he says to himself. They breed them tough in Australia, and this one's as tough as they come. Well, it's been a classic match. It's had it all. Drama, injury, great squash. And now in the last throws, can Dave Palmer find some extra zip?
He just needs a few winners and he'll be in. But Peter at this point is looking favourite, I'd say.
They both look drained, but I think Palmer's the one who's struggling the most.
David's made Peter do an awful lot of work today, and it might not be just enough at this point.
Well, I hope the trophy's not too heavy, because whoever's going to have to pick it up could struggle. Oh, that's a terrific boast, and a cull in time to play it.
Yeah, that's a shot that really shows when there's any strength left in the legs, and David Palmer was unable to respond to that.
And that's 12-8, Peter Nicol. And he just needs 3 points, and he'll be raising that trophy and accepting the cheers. And gosh, how much will he deserve it? But both of them. How sad for a loser at this stage, Mark.
Oh yes, you know, like he's putting so much effort, David Palmer. If he doesn't win this after coming back from 2-0 down, he'll be a very disappointed man. They've, if you notice, they're not hitting the ball quite as hard. They're using the higher part of the court to give themselves a bit more time, because the pace isn't quite in the legs anymore.
Well, who can blame them? This has been a mammoth match. A terrific exhibition of squash and oh, and finally, not only doesn't he get the ball, you can see the body language. He's screaming in agony, this boy. 13-8.
He needs a really big set of winners now. Peter's only 2 shots away.
I think the masseur can get himself ready, because he's going to have at least an hour and a half's work on David at the end of this. Oh, Peter picks it up. What a cruel game. Peter Nicol, when he's on top, really shows the killer instinct. And Palmer still runs diagonals.
Yeah, that's a lot of effort for a let there for David Palmer. He would have, he'd have been hoping for a stroke or even a no let. He just doesn't want to play another rally.
And Peter knows it. And he is going to keep this going. Anything to keep that ball on the front wall. But Dave Palmer takes another one. And Peter doesn't look as fresh as a daisy. And Dave Palmer adjusts his footwear once again, comes back in at 9-13. Remember, this is the 5th game of the final of the Qatar Classic here in Doha. And it's a special match. 2 special players, and Dave Palmer rockets that ball into the tin. And Peter Nicol is on championship point, and the crowd know it. What a moment, Mark.
Oh yes, Peter will be very pleased to be in this position. It wasn't looking very good 10 or 15 minutes ago.
Well, I think there'll also be one relieved referee up there. They do a great job, and I admire their input. I think maybe an error in judgment on that 1 point, allowing David to leave the court with cramp. But what a point. This is a quality championship point. Oh.
Peter's just hanging on in. He's hanging on in there.
Oh, and David Palmer absolutely melts that ball into the right hand neck. And how much damage is he doing into himself? This boy will not give in.
No, definitely, he's not giving in. This is what's got him to #1 in the world.
Now, our viewers know what this game's about. This is pain, and you don't hear a lot of complaints down there. He just gets on with it. Peter Nicol, he's hurting as well. And it's still match ball, Peter Nicol. Dave Palmer, absolute agony.
Yeah, they don't look well now, Robert, do they?
Oh, my goodness me. These boys won't be out for a jog tonight. And Peter Nicol just needing this point to get his hands on that trophy. And quite a large check as well. And he's got it. Peter Nicol shows how much it's taken out of him. A classic final. A wonderful, wonderful exhibition by both players. And Peter Nicol is the 2001 Qatar Classic champion. And here the finish.
That's been a great final. Peter's worked really hard, and you can see it. He really wanted that one.
I'm delighted to have won it before my calf gave way. I can hardly walk now, so I'm just happy to have kept going and managed to get through that game. I was 2-love up, and it was 5-all I think in the third, but I was feeling quite good. I think he was struggling, and I bumped accidentally in the middle. I got a bad knee in the calf, dead leg. Struggled for the next couple of games movement, but then he got very, very tired in the 5th, and luckily I was moving just well enough to keep up with it and pull out in the 5th. delighted, but obviously quite tired.
Yeah, it's hard to remember too much straight away, but probably, yeah, not winning the first 2 games was crucial. I thought I played well the first game, and probably just 2 or 3 bad errors at the end of the game lost me, and that was probably crucial. And then I lost the second quite easy, but I still thought I was playing quite well. I thought I was well in the rallies, but I just couldn't put any points on the board. But yeah, obviously disappointed there in the 5th. I thought I came back well to win the 3rd and the 4th, and I was actually felt pretty good actually going into the 5th game, and whatever it was, 7-all when I started to cramp up, and then yeah, disappointing way to end it. But at the end of the day, too good. We played too well, so disappointed, but getting closer. So hopefully next time I'll get him.
Well, they couldn't have wished for a better final. After a 98-minute battle of wills as well as skills, we perhaps see the #1 crown passed back from David Palmer to its previous owner, Peter Nicol. As Peter Nicol picks up the Qatar Classic trophy, as well as the lion's share of the $140,000 prize purse. He wins for the first time in 3 visits to Qatar. And Peter Nicol clearly declares his intentions in the build-up to the World Open in India in December. We'll see you there in our next programme, but meanwhile we look forward to returning to Qatar next year, re-established on the PSA World Tour.